ABC, it's Danny. Here to do my Vinyl Tech 2021. Um, every year I mean to do it. Every year I leave it too long. Making sure I don't do that this year. So let's get right into it. A discovery in 2020. This is just kind of a segue. Showing this up front. This reissue of Chet Baker Sings, the Tone Poet reissue, really set me off on a path during this year of tracking down uh, basically strong recordings of the classic American songbook titles. My One and Only Love is a big standout track here on Horace Silver, Stylings of Silver. Um, this is a very recent pickup, Art Tatum and Ben Webster. All the Things You Are, My One and Only Love, My Ideal. Um, and beyond just the standards, getting into Gene Ammons. I mean, just a lot of straight ahead kind of blues and ballads, R&B, jazz. Uh, you know, really getting into tone and appreciating the standards. And one of the highlights in kind of exploring this kind of music has been this record, the Johnny Griffin Quartet, the Carrie Dancers, and it's not American Songbook, Cole Porter, kind of jazz standards, but he tackles some English Irish folk songs here, and just really, really incredible versions. Black is the Color of My True Love's Hair, the Londonderry Air, which you may know better is the tune to Danny Boy. The whole first side is English and Irish folk songs, and the second side is originals. And the playing on this is just unreal, phenomenal stuff. So yeah, kind of more straight ahead jazz has been something. I mean, to call it a discovery seems weird, but it's just where my head's been at. A Quarantine by. What did I pull out for this? Yes, there we go. So this one of the first things I tried to pick up in quarantine, sat in a post office in Tokyo for about 2 months. This is a Japanese king pressing of Don Cherry's Symphony for Improvisers with dual obies there. This is a record I've just been wanting to pick up for a long time, since I saw James Buttery show it years ago, and kind of been keeping an eye out for a copy, and started looking for Liberty pressings, and quickly realized that a King pressing would probably be the best. So I ordered some records from Japan to try to get that one in particular, and they sat in the post office for 2.5 months, and it's a phenomenal record. It's kind of avant / free, but still centered around Don Cherry's compositions, still grounded. Beautiful playing. Let me see. I didn't mention the lineup on here, but Don Cherry, Pharoah Sanders, Gato Barbieri, Carl Berger, Henry Grimes, Jenny Clark, and Ed Blackwell. Incredible stuff. So I was happy to pick that up during quarantine. So an LP that I want to find in 2021. Well, this is my want list from 2020, and as you can see, not much of it ended up getting picked up. Wasn't out in the shops. I could pick anything. I really want to find a good copy of the Kinks Village Green. I would love to find a nice copy of Otis Redding's Pain in My Heart, John Lee Hooker's Serve Your Right to Suffer, the Ramones self-titled, Nico, Chelsea Girl. The big one seems to be getting farther out of reach every day. There's a few from last year's want list that are still on this year's want list anyway. A box set. So this is Joanna Newsom's Have One on Me, which is one of my favorite albums by her. I mean, every album she's made is phenomenal, and I'm not sure if I've talked about this before on the channel, but this is a 3 LP box set. I just don't feel that this album gets enough recognition for her. It's it's a sprawling 3 LP record, and I think that probably has a lot to do with it. That it's harder to digest because it's longer. There's more of it, but this is an incredible breakup album. It really tracks the entire journey of a relationship. Some of the early songs, like Good Intentions Paving Company, I mean, just from the title, you can hear it there. It really explains where where you are before you realize a relationship is over, and then tracks it as it ends. And it's beautiful. It's beautifully told, beautifully sung. I believe Van Dyke Parks did string orchestration for this. Absolutely gorgeous record. Absolutely gorgeous. Some really standout tracks on there. Couldn't recommend it highly enough. All right, and then a concept album. So some of these were harder than I thought they would be. I thought that my collection was littered in concept records, and I couldn't really. But a big one for me, the Decemberist concept record, The Hazards of Love. I used to know the story better. I think it must be based on some type of ancient English or Irish poem or something, knowing Colin Malloy. But this is a true concept record. It tells the story of, I think, a young prince who's turned into a deer, through under the spell of a witch, and falls in love with a maiden who's on the other side of a river, and he can't cross the river. Something to that effect, but really deep, really deep. I think at one point the lead singer of this band, Colin Malloy, had written a full stage play with dialogue and everything. You can really follow the story behind this, obviously, but it's a very narrative-driven concept record. And for the band, when did this come out? 2009? 2009. It was a very logical progression. They'd been building their prog folk kind of ideals. They'd released an EP called The Tane, which was a 25-minute, 5-movement song about an ancient Celtic epic poem. And so, yeah, Hazards of Love, concept record from the Decemberists. An album where an artist or band changed directions. So this may be very obvious, but this is what I chose anyway. I decided to go with OK Computer for this one by Radiohead. Not because it's the most radical shift Radiohead's ever made, although maybe it is. I just remember, I mean, this is the icon to me of a band really changing directions. And I think Radiohead's interesting in that they constantly change directions to the point where it's a hallmark of the band and you expect them to find a new sound. And I would even say, to some fans anyway, King of Limbs is their weakest record because they changed the least. But OK Computer, just when it came out, it was seismic, and for any band to change their sound that much after Pablo Honey and the Bends, it was radical, and it pushed and inspired a lot of other artists, I think, and as everything kind of does in this society, those radical things don't seem so radical in hindsight. If you listen to the Bends and then listen to this record, maybe they changed some instrumentation. There's definitely some vocal hallmarks, but it's clearly the same band. But I don't know. I'm rambling. Radiohead, their ability to constantly reinvent themselves and still be who they are is super inspiring to me. What do we got up next? A white label promo. Alright, so I'm cheating here. I don't have all that many white label promos, and I don't seek them out intentionally, but I do enjoy getting them. This is a recent one. A Day in the City, the Don Friedman Trio. It's a white label promo. It's a Japanese pressing. I'm just going to run through a few here as I find them. Sorry. I should be better prepared. But, yeah, like I say, I don't go too out of my way to find these but it is pretty neat to find a white label promo. This is one of my favorites. The Velvet Underground Loaded, the promo copy. I get you that white label. On Cotillion. Solomon Burke. I Wish I Knew. This is a mono DJ copy. A white label. And this one, not that rare or anything, but for whatever reason, I just kind of just had to track down Boomer Story, probably my favorite Rycuda record. The promo with the tracklist hype sticker and the white label reprise label. So there you go. Like I said, I don't go too far out of my way. I don't seek it out necessarily, but it's always fun to grab a white label. It is an extra little treat. All right. Then we've got a compilation album. What did I pull here? I had too many options for every question. I have multiple possibilities in this stack here. Excuse me. Bear with me. So I wanted to avoid showing a Mississippi Records comp because I feel like it's cheating because they mostly put out phenomenal comps. I was only somewhat successful in doing that. This is the Glenn Henry Winners by the Kinks, and this is a Mississippi Records reissue of a rare bootleg Kinks comp, which has kind of early and demo versions of some great Kinks tracks. I Go to Sleep, There's a New World, Time Will Tell, This I Know, Strange Effect, Time, and from what I understand, this was originally put together by a Dutch superfan with the help of Ray Davis. He kind of gave them access to master tapes and high quality recordings, and so it was a great bootleg originally, and this is a beautiful repress of it that was done fairly limited. Just a lot of nice little details in the way they put this together. Nice little booklet here. Yeah, there's some fake ads in there too for other bootlegs that don't exist. It's a neat package. All right. After a compilation, then we've got an album that tells a story. So I don't know how well I'll be able to tell this story, but and I interpreting this one as the album has a story to go with it. So this has a few stories to go with it. This is The Long Winters, When I Pretend to Fall. It's a favorite of mine that I've had for years, that I picked up when I went to go see the band live back in the early 2000s. The reason I pulled this now is that the lead singer of this band, The Long Winters, is a guy named John Roderick, and who recently achieved notoriety as Bean Dad by about a week ago posting a story about his daughter was hungry, his 8-year-old, and she wanted to open a can of beans, or he told her to eat beans, and she didn't know how to open them. She didn't know how to use a can opener. He said he realized he'd never taught her how to use a can opener, and so rather than explain to her how to use a can opener, he encouraged her to figure it out herself over the course of about 8 hours, while she cried and got upset and was hungry, and eventually she worked out how to use the can opener, and he was very proud of himself as a father. He posted this story as a thread on Twitter, which was a huge mistake, and Twitter freaked out and decided he was an abusive father, and then they dug up a bunch of old tweets that he'd made, possibly in jest, but certainly not using the greatest language, and they ran him off Twitter. And he became incredibly famous for a few days as being this kind of Twitter pariah. and I know him as just the lead singer of this band. And yeah, so one has very little to do with the other. It's still a great record. When I Pretend to Fall by the Long Winters, but I just keep thinking of this record because this guy's become a bit of a sensation, a viral thing. Anyway, number 10, an album that needs a vinyl press. One of my absolute favorites, by Willie Nelson, produced by Don Was. Willie Nelson, Across the Borderline. I would just love a vinyl pressing of this. I don't mean to be cynical about it, but I kind of have a feeling we're going to have to wait till Willie passes. But I also feel like once that happens, we're probably going to be inundated. There's a promo CD, which I was happy to find at Amoeba. And to be very real, albums of the CD era I'm happy to own on CD. But I would not turn down a vinyl repress or vinyl pressing. A common and an uncommon LP. Alright. Apologies in advance for the groanier element of this, but I couldn't resist. So, common LP is Van Morrison's Common One. 1980 release, I think, by Van the Man, recorded in the south of France. 70s records, some of them are starting to get more desirable. Lots of 60s records have reached the 20 to 40 range. Lots and lots of 50s records are out of reach now. The 80s are pretty available, pretty ubiquitous still. And so this is a Van record that I see lying around. I didn't have to pay more than $3 for this copy. Mastered by Bernie Grundman, actually. So it sounds great. This is a beautiful... you can hear Van spreading out kind of spiritually, exploring his jazz influence. It's a very vibey record, a very kind of down-tempo, moody, but not in a dark way. Just really peaceful and beautiful and kind of searching and soulful. Great record. But easily available, kind of all over the place. By contrast, this record took me forever to track down. This is Van Morrison's Avalon Sunset, I believe 1989. So rounding out the decade that began with Common One. I think kind of maybe masterpieces is a little strong, but incredibly solid releases by Van to bookend the 80s. This is Van's, real spiritual, overtly stated, this is a spiritual record. He was returning to his Christian roots. When God Shines His Light is the big single, but as I often find with artists, kind of Dylan's Christian period too, I don't know. I mean, look at the Sistine Chapel. There's something about people creating art that, at least for them, is divinely inspired. I think it doesn't matter whether you feel that or agree with that or believe in that at all. That passion comes through. It's why gospel music is so powerful. But anyway, I find that in this Van record, Avalon Sunset, an uncommon, not quite rare, but an uncommon Van record. A girl group. This one, I'm ashamed to say, was harder to find in my collection than I thought. I have lots of female-fronted groups, but didn't have too many entirely female groups. But I went with Trio. Dolly Parton, Linda Ronstadt, and Emmylou Harris. To Know Him Is to Love Him. Gorgeous 3-part harmony. Just a beautiful country pop record. Great stuff. Gonna move it along. Taking too long here. An album cover that you love. This is a new acquisition, but I just can't get over the cover. I'm sure you'll all recognize Bill Evans, Jim Hall, Undercurrent. Such an evocative, beautiful cover, and it kind of bends genre in a way. I feel like if I told you this was an emo record or a metal record, you would believe me. If I told you this was classical, it would work. Maybe not blues, maybe not punk, but there's a lot. An electronic record. If I told you this was an electronic record, it's such a powerful, such an evocative image, um, and I think it kind of an unexpected kind of subtle choice for a jazz duo record, but Bill Evans and Jim Hall, of course, phenomenal piano and guitar players. Beautiful, beautiful record. Incredible playing. Another Japanese pressing. Um, let's see. An album that you've listened to the most. Um, there's a lot of records I could pull here, which I think we could all say we've listened to the most. I could pull out Graceland, but I don't think any of us need to see Graceland again. So I decided to go with Bell and Sebastian's Tiger Milk. Certainly the Bell and Sebastian record that I've listened to the most. Their first record, my favorite by them. And I chose it because I think I have so many more listens left that I've listened to this endlessly and I still don't feel done with it. Whereas I love Graceland, but really got to be in the mood for Graceland now. I've heard it too many times. I know every single note, and I do know every note of this record, but it just hasn't worn out its welcome yet. So, Don Sebastian's Tiger Milk. It's an album that I've listened to the most. An album that I had to get an OG of. So, for those of you who follow me on Instagram, you'll have already seen this, but for anybody just here on the channel, maybe haven't seen this one yet. This came out. This became available to me just before quarantine, and I saw it on the Instagram of my local record shop, and I freaked out. And I just started pulling records off the shelves. I pulled a huge pile of records off my shelves to trade in. Brought them in the next morning, the moment they opened, and I brought home Anne Briggs, self-titled, on Topic. Anne Briggs, a UK folk artist, hugely influential. I believe she used to date Bert Jansch, lived with him, influenced him certainly. Big influence on Christy Moore, on tons of people in the UK folk scene, and on and on. Big influence on the Decemberists. I think friends with Davy Graham. Very much of that world. Blackwater Side was a song that she kind of gave to Jansch. The Snow It Melts the Soonest. Willie O. Winsbury is just absolutely gorgeous. Renardine. This is her folk record doing folk music. She just has a gorgeous voice. Really simple instrumentation here. Guitar, maybe bouzouki. And Johnny Moynihan, who also was a kind of a beau of hers, I think, also playing on here. It's just a grail, one of those grails I just, you think it'd be nice to have one day, but you never really believe that you're going to find one. And then for it to show up at my local, I just had to take it home. And I was happy to live without a bunch of other records in order to make that happen. So yeah, there are reissues. It would have been a lot more affordable, but it's an album that's stylistically, influentially, so at the center of so many other records that I collect. I just felt like I needed to get that original if it was within my power. The last album I purchased. Last album I purchased was this one. Alabaster de Plume, Toussaint Lee Instrumentals Volume 1. I kept seeing this show up on end of year lists as one of the best albums of the year, and immediately streamed it and agreed. This is a gorgeous, gorgeous jazz slash ambient, but ambience maybe I see it described as ambient, but I think that may be overstating it a little bit. It's certainly a jazz record. There's just lots of space in the music. It's very focused on the sounds, specifically the texture of the sounds. You can hear the keys of the sax being pressed and played and released, and just just gorgeous in absolutely every way. Really peaceful record that I'm very happy to have picked up. The most recent thing to join the collection. An album they don't get. Um, yeah, this is a tough one in a way, but Johnny Fritz, uh, Sweet Creep. So he's just an artist who I recommend to a lot of people, and I, and they don't ever seem as excited about him as I am. He's a country singer, songwriter. He also is a leather worker. Now he's a real estate agent. Are You Thirsty? Happy in Hindsight. I Love Leaving. Those three songs that start off the record are that's my sales pitch. Johnny Fritz, Are You Thirsty? Happy in Hindsight, and I Love Leaving. Phenomenal, phenomenal. Kind of modern outlaw country. He's got a great sense of humor, beautiful voice, um, just a great singer and a great songwriter. There's a little handwritten note that came with I got some leather work done by him. I got a belt that he made, and sent me a nice little note. Yeah, I don't know. I just keep recommending him to all my buddies, and doesn't seem to have stuck with anybody. So that's how he made the cut for this question. So next up is a punk LP, and I had a little bit of trouble with this one as well because I was going through and I was like, oh, these are all too obvious. These are, of course, you want to pick The Clash, London Calling, or Black Flag Damage or something. And when I pulled this one out, I was like, oh, does this count? And then when I looked it up to double check, to see what the internet said, I got every answer at once. So I thought, this is perfect. Television Adventure. My definition of punk is broad enough to include proto-punk, I guess. I read Please Kill Me when I was in college, really getting deeper into punk, or finding my own path, not beyond what my brother had listened to. And so that book was hugely influential, and this album was a big one that came out of that for me. But if you look it up, it's punk, proto-punk, and post-punk somehow all at the same time, which I think is really an apt descriptor of what was going on in New York then in the 70s. And so yeah. Television Adventure. It's a great record. Punk in a way that might be confusing to hear called punk now to our modern ears, but truly a punk record and a great one. All right. A favorite 2020 reissue. Before I do that, I totally skipped a question. I missed an EP, question 12, I think. So, making up for that. Lavender Diamond, The Cavalry of Light. Lavender Diamond is a kind of you could call him freak folk. Whatever is in between freak folk and, anthem rock folk. They certainly lean toward the freak folk side, but it's not quite. It's very pretty music. It's not pastoral. Kind of if you took freak folk and you took the Phil Spector kind of wall of sound kind of vibe and mashed them up. Drums are played by the cartoonist Ron Reggie Jr., who also did this beautiful album artwork. It's kind of intricate, obsessive cartooning. It's incredibly idiosyncratic. This is a 4-song EP. You Broke My Heart, Please, In Heaven There Is No Heat, Rise in the Springtime. Becky Stark from this band sings on The Hazards of Love. The Decemberists, she kind of has a part to play, like it's a concept record, so she's playing a part. And anyway, yeah, it's a great record. Beautiful sound. It feels free and loose, and sincere without being corny or self-serious. It's a nice flavor of this style of music that you don't normally find. Lavender Diamond, pretty down tempo though. Not gonna rock anybody's socks. Okay. My favorite 2020 reissue, I could have easily picked the Chet Baker Sings Tone Poet, but everybody picked it. So I chose this Vinyl Me Please reissue of Fiona Apple. The idler wheel is wiser than the driver of the screw, and whipping cords will serve you more than ropes will ever do. The idler wheel is wiser. I didn't pick it up when it first came out, and I've been regretting it because it's been about $100 LP ever since. Final Me Please had done a previous repress, but that still fetched big money, so this was a Christmas gift for my wife. I was thrilled to finally have this record. Um, one of her best. Uh, right up there with her latest, Fetch the Bolt Cutters, which is certainly one of the best records of 2020 for me. And I was very, very happy to grab this. Very, very happy to have it. So there you go. There's my vinyl tag 2021. Thanks, Andrew, for putting it together. Thanks, everybody, for uh, your entries. Inspired me to do this. And went a little longer than I wanted, so I'll wrap it up here. Good to see you guys. Talk soon. Bye.